You want to do a little Q&A before your story?
Not quite yet, but yeah, but here's the, and maybe afterwards. Is that okay? Does that work?
I would do the blessing, a little Q&A, and then finish with your story.
How about this? How about we'll do this called transparency. No one look. How about we'll do Q&A first, and then the call on the story.
Okay.
Okay. So maybe what we'll do is, right, Dan's suggestion, which she whispered into my ear, nobody heard, is that maybe we'll just take like actually 5 minutes or whatever time, just do a little just question and answer on what we did tonight. I think that's a great idea. Then what we'll do is we'll end with the challah, right, and the story, which is actually about the challah and the kiddush, and about first, second, and third person from the mystical tradition. Okay, is that a plan for the next 15, 20? We'll kind of wrap us up here. Y'all from California, you guys okay? Like, okay. Time zones, everything's like, okay. We're an hour later here. Okay. So let's do that. Let's just take a little some Q&A questions. Does anyone have any comments, jokes, alternative talks, speeches?
The talk they would rather you give.
Could you just say something about the first the prayers that you did? Was that traditional or?
Right. The prayers were actually a combination of first, second, and third person. Right. That is to say, the prayer is a chant. So the chant itself is a first person experience. Right? The content is both a third person affirmation about the nature of the Sabbath, right, and a second person, right, inviting of the community to participate together. It actually holds all three. The text, right, comes from a classical biblical text, but from what I call biblical consciousness as opposed to the Bible, which are two different things. The Bible is biblical consciousness. Oh, what's that? That might be interesting, and we'll talk about that. What that and how those play and how we kind of levels of consciousness. There's actually something to say at that level, even as we transcend into a different level. Okay.
What was the content of the prayer? Can you translate?
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et Shabbat. The children of Israel kept the Sabbath. But the way Israel is translated is the word Israel means Yashar El, means directly to God. Meaning the church can't interfere. The actual word Israel means Yashar El, direct and mediated to God. So Israel's always about not having an ecclesia, a church that mediates between. So those who go directly to God held, right, the sanctity of time in the seventh day. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael. It's a covenant between not man and God only, but a covenant between the generations. Between me and between the future generations and the past generations. Oti le'olam. It stands for faith history over power history. That's the basic translation of the core, and then it just keeps repeating. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah, I remember a conversation, a recording you were having with Kim Over and Michael Beckwith, and you were talking about the 3-2-1 of God, and you said, yeah, it's three
That was a wild conversation.
Yeah, it's 3 ways to love God.
Right.
And I thought that was really
Right.
profound, and Kim was kind of stumped, love God. No,
That's about what happened. But actually, Ken was fantastic in that conversation. It was one of the funnier conversations in the world. Y'all know The Secret? So Michael Beckwith, a good friend, all right, it's the minister of a place called Agape. And I met Michael with Brother David, and we all were hanging out. And so I wanted to get Michael, and Ken was like a friend of a different part of my brain. And Michael was a friend of a different part of my brain. I had this crazy idea once I was going to get them together. Oh my God, right? So we get together in a room, and the truth is we all had a great time. But it was really different perspectives playing. Michael's deep in second person. Ken's completely personable and beautiful. In his best and highest. He's also deep in third person. Obviously, that's why he's presented us with with beautiful maps. And I was right. And I was trying to kind of hold the two. And we had a wild night. We had a wild night. Yeah, we did indeed. Yeah. So what? Anyone else?
Can you say
Joy.
more about how? In the Jewish tradition, like how they use the Sabbath, you said like to not manipulate external circumstances so that you can, like you said,
remake yourself.
Yeah, like
I'll
can
just
you say more about
I'll
how
just do
you
one
do that?
sentence on it, just because it's a little off topic.
Yeah.
It's a little off topic. And by the way, I said Q&A, but it was Q&A actually to we're doing Q&A together. I just happened to be the person who finished talking last. So you can ask questions.
Well, you also manifested miracles. So
Hey, listen, walking on water's
we
tomorrow.
haven't seen any lotus flowers.
They're
You
coming.
think so?
They're coming. Absolutely. Right now we're so just one sentence on it. And maybe one sentence that honors kind of the what I would call the Buddhist expression of Sabbath and the Jewish expression of Sabbath, which is Sabbath is cessation. It's cessation of beginner's mind. That's what Sabbath is. It's a 24-hour meditative period where I basically kind of step back and I stop doing all the things that I do and I just notice, right? And then what I do is I seek ordinary mind, meaning I eat, I drink, I talk, right? But I try and create an ordinary mind. And I'll just give you one actually practice of the Sabbath, which I was going to talk about later as we closed in like 10, 15 minutes. Maybe this is a good time to say it, which I want to invite you to. And Dan and I have talked about it and we've shared it before. And if it works for y'all, it would actually be fantastic. Which is on the Sabbath, there's a custom that we try and move through a particular addiction. Okay? Now, with great respect, and really, I mean this, completely sincerely, sort of, right? To everyone here, I believe that everyone in the room, right? And I'm not talking about, I don't know what, your particular history is with substances. I'm not talking about that. I mean in a much deeper way, a much more profound way. I believe that everyone in the room is an addict. I believe that's probably true. So let me just try and, just for a second, go around for a second, try and answer your question. Let's all answer your question. What would be a good definition of addiction? Anyone? Because Sabbath is all
Something you have to have.
something you have to have. Okay, something you have to have. Anyone else? Definition of addiction.
Doing it even when it's hurting you and others.
Even you want to
You
mess
can't
them
stop.
Up. Can't stop. So can't stop. Let's go. Can't stop. Go. Anyone else?
Loss of control.
Loss of control.
Seeking
Compulsive.
satisfaction from outside.
Seeking satisfaction from outside.
Mm.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Insatiable.
Say again.
Insatiable.
Cheap seats. Insatiable. Okay.
Mhm.
Insatiable. Okay. So there's a kind of, if we put it together, there's a kind of loss of inner center. There's a kind of, I can't stop doing it, and it's against what actually I know my value is. Okay, is that right? That good so far?
Yeah.
Okay. How many people in this room think that actually gossiping about other people is a great thing to do? Just fabulous. Just gossip, slander other people. That's so cool. That's like so, oh my God, that's such a good thing to do. How many people think that's a fantastic thing to do? Really? Okay, so that's the last question. I hate to do this one. How many people here gossip? Okay. We got a little addict room here. Okay, so that's what I thought. Okay, so gossip is one of those crazy things we just do all the time. We do all the time because we want to be on the inside of the circle, and it's so hard to be on the inside, so we kind of place someone else on the outside to give ourselves an illusion of being on the inside. Right, you follow that? We'll talk about that more tomorrow. So I want to actually ask for a practice and just introduce for our 2 days. We'll create a kind of, if you will, a zazen space, a sacred lotus flower space, right, a Sabbath space for the next 2 days. But for the next 2 days, try the practice, and we'll try it together, of not gossiping. Meaning that, particularly about people in the room, you may know something about someone, about there, and let's create kind of a radically safe space. And if you can, just not to gossip for 2 days. Just try and, in other words, move out of that particular second person practice. You'll see, like any addiction, it's enormously hard to do. And you think that's like an easy little request. It's not easy at all. But if we can actually weave that practice space, what we'll do is we'll actually move beyond a very, 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 very deep addiction, and we'll involve in cessation. So one of the sacred practices of the Sabbath was precisely that. That the masters were kind of realistic that it's never going to work all week. But at least create a practice space, right? Create a practice space where for actually the next 48 hours that we're hanging out together, we actually create a radically safe space, right? And that judgments about he did this, she said that, he was wearing that, he looked like that, he had that, right? About people here or other people, just take it out of the space and really create that kind of second person space where we all get to be actually create a community. And the Hebrew word, the original Hebrew word for community is edah, which means to witness. It means a community is a crucible for witnessing. It's a crucible for witnessing the infinite gorgeousness, right, of everybody who shows up. And so, and as we said earlier, and I can actually, and I wasn't sure where we were coming, I can actually feel it in the room, there's no one extra here. I mean, we're just who we need to be. So to kind of be able to create that crucible, right, that would be what a Sabbath space would be. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
When you were talking about the three perspectives of hurt, what I gathered from that was that the healthy aspect of that is like